Professor Valeriy Bebyk film released by film studio Civilization Incognita for KYIV TV channel and Parliamentary TV channel RADA. Secrets of Tibetan Buddhism by Professor Valeriy Bebyk film. Greetings, dear madams and gentlemen. We are in the Middle Kingdom, again, researching the Buddhism issues. As it is known, there are three main Buddhism schools: Chan or Zen Buddhism, Chinese Buddhism, Sarvastivada, Vinaya, Tibetan Buddhism, and the Southern Buddhism, Theravada. The first two are the most popular ones, and it is Tibetan Buddhism that we know the least. Thus, today we would explore Tibetan Buddhism that has a number of its unique features. Buddhism is one of the global religions of our humanity and has more than 500 million followers. The founder is the Prophet Buddha Sakyamuni, who originated from noble clan of Eastern Scythian Sakas. His father was Shuddhadana and mother was Maya. We remind you that Dana is the Scythian goddess of water, whose name is given to the main Ukrainian rivers Dnipro, Danube, Dniester, Don, and Siversky Donets rivers' names. Here is how sacred texts portray the birth of Buddha. Exactly after his birth, he put both of his feet on the ground and made 7 steps to the north, while people were carrying a white baldachin above his head. He looked in 4 directions and proclaimed with a brilliant voice, "I am the most valuable, the best and the superior. This is my last birth. I won't be born anymore." The top world historians are sure that the Scythian Aryan tribes came to the southeastern Asia from Ukrainian Dnipro region in between 3rd and 2nd millennium BC. According to the history's father Herodotus, Scythian tribe, the Budini, used to live at modern time Sumy and Chernihiv regions of Ukraine.
Областей України проживав скіфський народ будинів.
The Budini are a great and populous nation. The eyes of them all are very bright and they are ruddy. They have a city built of wood called Gelonos. The wall of it is 3 3/4 miles in length on each side of the city. This wall is high and all of the wood, and their houses are wooden, and their temples, for there are temples of Greek gods among them, furnished in Greek style with images and altars and shrines of wood, and they honor Dionysus every 2 years with festivals and revelry, for the Geleni are by their origin Greeks, who left their trading ports to settle among the Budini, and they speak a language half Greek, half Scythian. The most of scientists believe that Prophet's name Buddha means enlightened, but there is the other more sound version. It states that it is just his family name, originating from his pre-Ukrainian relatives Budini. One more thing, the great Scythian Buddha who lived in the 6th-5th century BC was a prophet, not a god, even though he was beloved by his followers after his death.
Але не Богом, хоча після смерті і був обожнений його послідовниками.
I believe Buddha was a person that was observing and meditating a lot. He loved Buddha and his ethics. Buddha Sakyamuni had a noble origin and great kingship perspectives in the kingdom in the south of the present-day Nepal, where his father was the ruler. But he had chosen a different path of the Prophet. He tried different schools and practices and ultimately reached Nirvana state. His clan's name Buddha had become a sacred title of the great Scythian prophet, and Buddhism was spread through many Asian countries.
Титулом великого скіфського пророка, а буддизм поширився в багатьох країнах Азії.
Buddhism came to our lands 2000 years ago when the first monks arrived from India. But Buddhism in different parts of China has different characteristic features. During 2000 years history, the three different schools were formed of Chinese, Tibetan and Southern Buddhism. Buddha didn't remain us any written works. He was making oral explanations of his teachings. And only after the death of the beloved Prophet, his students wrote his original teachings that were later on edited by the masters. One of the basic concepts of Buddhist philosophy is that you cannot separate suffering from life. Suffering originates from our wishes. If we stop wishing, we will stop suffering. And one of the main statements of the Buddhist ethics is causing no harm to living creatures.
Зникнуть і страждання. А однією з головних тез буддійської етики стала відмова від заподіяння шкоди живим істотам.
Buddhism affects people's culture and life. We believe in the cause-effect rule. The deeds of today would affect the life of future generations. We believe that the life is infinite, and the period that we live in now is just a small part of the whole life. Thus, if we do good, it would definitely cause positive results in future. Buddhists are sure that to make it happen, one should do good deeds, pray and meditate. The monks are the first one to practice meditation. Additionally, they are taking care of the monastery, growing vegetables, preparing healing herbs and medicine. They are practicing Kung Fu in Shaolin Monastery. In Tibetan Buddhism, monks are concentrated on meditation and economic activities.
Монахи обмежуються медитаціями і господарськими роботами.
The great Sisant prophet Buddha made 3 circles of Dharma chakra. It means he gave 3 circles of teachings that are showing the path to the happiness. In his prophecies, he used the power of words, symbols, and his own example. There were different people of different mental and cultural background among his students, ranging from villain to kings, from beginners to bodhisattvas and arhats, who reached the highest level of enlightenment.
Бодхісаттв і архатів, що вже знаходяться на високих рівнях. І всіх їх він приводив до мети, до вершеного просвітлення.
There are various Buddhist schools, and overall they are close to each other. The main difference is in the way to learn suttas. Let's say you are heading to Tibet, and each of you took a different transport, an aircraft, train, and car. Each of you took his own means of transport, but each of you reached the same destination. Buddhism history accounts for more than 2,500 years. Different Buddhist schools were formulated during this time that are known as the turnings of Dharma chakra. The first turning is Hinayana, or small vehicle. It stresses the importance of positive outer behavior and abounding suffering that is caused through realizing the absence of ego in your personality. This tradition is spread among 1,000 Buddhist countries: Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia and Thailand. A Soviet researcher, Lev Gumilov, wrote, "In Buddhism, the world is divided into 2 non-equal parts, community of Buddhist monks and the others. The foundation is made of monks since they are hidden from samsara, everyday life, to the divine emptiness, nirvana. Monks shouldn't act since the action is caused by passion and leads to the sin. Secular people are obliged to feed, dress and protect monks. Through these duties, they receive the benefit that would help them to become monks in their next lives and start their spiritual way." The second turning is Mahayana, the great vehicle, or the vehicles of causes. Buddha has shown that the nature of all things is free, empty, from current, independent being that is realized through consciousness. The state of consciousness is achieved through careful study of things and meditation. This tradition is the most common in the northern Buddhist countries: Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, Mongolia, China, Japan, Korea and Vietnam.
Китай, Японія, Корея, В'єтнам.
Monks of the monastery spend most of their time meditating. The third turning is Vajrayana, the tantric vehicle, or the diamond vehicle. Buddha created the teaching about Buddhist consciousness as the awakened inner consciousness. That is the foundation. There are two main practices as the part of diamond vehicle: Tibetan Buddhism and partially Zen Buddhism. Each practitioner imagines him or herself a special Buddha, following the iconic rules of Buddhist tantras. Guru, a person's teacher, first points out the essence of your Buddha and then prescribes you to meditate on this.
Тантрах. Друге. Гуру, тобто вчитель людини, спочатку напряму показує їй сутність її Будди, а потім дає їй вказівки медитувати про це.
According to Lev Gumilov, Buddha was a person who got rid of all wishes that motivate ordinary people for their deeds. He is the state of the complete calmness, also known as nirvana, and is the aim of Buddhism teaching followers. The person who reaches this state goes beyond the being. Buddhas are portrayed wearing traditional Indian hermit monks' cloaks. During the 1st-2nd centuries AD, Buddhism had developed into two main schools: Theravada, the school of the elders, and Mahayana, great vehicle. The representatives of the first one are from the south: Sri Lanka, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia. They believe that only monks can reach nirvana state. The believers of the latter one think any of them could reach nirvana, both monks and any other person in faith. Mahayana is spread in Tibet, Bhutan, Nepal, Vietnam, Mongolia, the Republic of Buryatia, and others. Overall, there is no unified church in Buddhism, but rather a lot of schools exists.
І існує багато шкіл.
As for today, there are approximately 5-6 schools of Tibetan Buddhism. The most famous one is the Nyingma traditions. Its representatives have a different understanding of Buddhism, but other schools are traditional too. The difference is in the transmission of teachings. According to some Tibetan experts, the popularity of the Nyingma tradition is caused by its relation to the traditional Tibetan religion, Bon, that affected the development of the Tibetan Buddhism. By the way, inside Tibet, closer to Indian Kashmir state, there are still 88 temples of Bon religion that are attended by more than 100,000 believers, but still over 90% of believers in Tibet attend Tibetan Buddhist temples. The outer design of Bon and Buddhist temples is relatively close to each other. The only difference is in the way how they go around the temple. Buddhists are circling clockwise from left to right, and Bon followers go counterclockwise.
Як вони обходять храм? Буддисти обходять його за стрілкою годинника, тобто зліва направо, а прибічники Бон навпаки.
As for now, there are many things in common between these two religions. The only difference is that Bon religion is connected to the believers that were dominating in Tibet at that time. Thus, Buddha entered the traditional Tibetan religion. These stereotypes are portraying Tibet almost the main world Buddhist center. Partially, Tibetans themselves support these ideas, saying that Buddha's will stopped in Lhasa, Tibetan capital. The word L in Tibetan means the god. Thus, Lhasa is the god city. Additionally, Tibetans claim that the center of the space is in Tibet, and there is a country, Shambhala, connected to the space. Nonetheless, historic truth states that Buddhism came to Tibet 600-700 years later than to China.
Стверджують, що буддизм з'явився в Тибеті на 600-700 років пізніше, ніж в Китаї.
Tibetan Buddhism appeared in Tibet in the 7th century. This was the reign of the Tufan kings. Many Buddha statues appeared here in this time. Monks were sent to India to study the canons and traditions of this religion. So, we can say that this happened during the reign of the famous king of the Tufan kingdom. Tufans are Tibetans who appeared in the historical arena around the 2nd century AD, and the famous Tufan king mentioned by my friend Tulku was Songtsen Gampo. Gampo is the royal title of that time, although there were kings in Tibet before. King Songtsen, who united the Tibetan principalities into one state, established his capital in Lhasa and ruled in Tibet in the 7th century AD. During his reign, Buddhism was rooted in Tibet. Songtsen Gampo was deified after his death and became considered the embodiment of the Buddhist patron of Tibet, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. Several other kings of Tibet also received the Bodhisattva's title as the defenders of the Buddhist faith after their deaths respectively.
Тобто захисників буддійської віри.
Tibetans are sure that Buddhism came to Tibet from India. In their turn, then Buddhists believe that the main source of Buddhism came to the Middle Kingdom from Tibet. In particular, during our visit to the Shaolin Temple, which belongs to Zen Buddhism, its abbot Shi Yangxing claimed that Buddhism was rooted in China thanks to the troops of Bogdo Khan Chinggis Khan, who was practicing Tibetan Buddhism. But there are some inconsistencies. Buddhism came to Tibet 600-700 years later than to China. In our opinion, the first wave of Buddhism came with the Tibetan Sakas along the northern routes of the Great Silk Road from Ukraine to China. One of these routes passed through the ancient Ukrainian city of Sudak. There is still a city called Sakhi nearby this area. We'd like to remind that the name of the Buddha's prophet was Sakyamuni, that is, a man of the Sakas clan.
З роду Саків.
I think the Silk Road was primarily a trade route, but I think that certain cultural things were also present. Both trade and spiritual exchange were taking their place. Overall, the Silk Road was not only a trade route, it also facilitated cultural exchange. There were things that embodied culture. There was obviously cultural exchange between Tibet and the imperial part of China. It is worthwhile to study why the tradition of the Diamond Way, the highest sacred intellectual level of Buddhism, which corresponds to the third turning of the Dharma chakra, and why it was rooted in Tibetan Buddhism. Dharma, by the way, is defined as the order of existence and development of the space. At the same time, it is an integral spiritual, social and moral societal law. I'd like to remind that Tibetan monks claim the view of Dharma stopped in Tibet, Lhasa. That is Buddha's place. Tibet is the center of space and Shambhala.
Центр космосу і Шамбали.
Dealing with the East, especially Eastern religions, it is almost impossible to separate philosophy from religion as such. In fact, philosophy itself is a religion, and any religion is impossible without understanding the philosophical sources and foundations of particular religion. In Tibet, local Buddhism is the prevailing religion. It is the unconditional core of this cultural tradition. There are many smaller ones, but firstly, they either join to this doctrine or are a reflection of some unpopular schools. Buddhism, in terms of social-religious management, gained its highest sacred and intellectual development in Tibet for several reasons. Firstly, it came there at the mature stage of its development, when the doctrine of Buddhism had already taken shape and was polished by the time. Secondly, in India, at that time, Buddhism already had a rather hostile socio-political environment, which had eventually caused Buddhism to move away from the Indian society. Thus, the situation wasn't about the perfection anymore. It was about the survival of Buddhism as such. Thirdly, the powerful mountain energy of Tibet associated with legendary Shambhala had probably played its role too. Shambhala is a mystical country which, according to various versions, is located in the Himalayas or the Gobi Desert. They say there are the teachers who determine the evolution of the humanity. According to Tibetan myths, Shambhala used to be a kingdom in Central Asia that became invisible after the Muslim invasion in the 9th century AD. Only pure-hearted people are able to see Shambhala.
Чисті серцем люди.
Tibet is a very interesting place. It is a unique region with an unexpected and spiritual dimension, attracting scientific attention for decades now. It is one of the most valuable spiritual findings of the 20th century. According to the Buddhist legends, the time will come when there will be a symbolic battle between the army of Shambhala and the forces of evil, which would mean the victory of wisdom over ignorance, spirituality over interior, devotion over selfishness. Another version means that Shambhala is not a kingdom, but a state of mind that unites man with the God. And the attainment of Shambhala means the attainment of enlightenment. Shambhala is mentioned in the sacred texts of both the Tibetan-born religion and the texts of Tibetan Buddhism. Lev Gumilov and Boris Kuznetsov believe there are common features in Buddhism and Bon Mitraism that are the instructions to believers to do good deeds and work on themselves. But the understanding of good and the reasoning behind the need to improve yourself are completely different. Buddhists consider good as an action or propaganda of their teachings. Mitraites, on the contrary, are struggling for the truth and justice, meaning the military actions, while the hermits are seen during the war as traitors. Surprisingly, according to some experts, the ancient Tibetan religion of Bon is of Iranian origin. The founder of this solar religion is considered to be the priest and the teacher Shenrab, who probably lived in the 6th century BC. That was the time of the Scythian prophet Sakyamuni Buddha, too. There is a hypothesis that Shenrab and Mithridates, the sun god, were one and the same person. The main gods of the solar religion born were Ahura Mazada, Mithras and Astarte, and the main believers' duties were praying and giving offering to the gods and fighting against demons and evil spirits. Later, the beloved Buddha was added to the divine pantheon of the national Tibetan religion.
Бон додався і обожнений Будда.
Thus, Tibetan Buddhism was formed on the basis of Buddhism and the national Tibetan-born religion. Just like Zen Buddhism, that was formed in China on the basis of Buddhism and Taoism, the national religion of the Han people. And these processes were not always peaceful, as modern Buddhists say. For example, the Tibetan king Langdharma, a proponent of the Bon religion, ordered the destruction of Buddhist monasteries, the burning of books and icons, and the conversion of Buddhist lamas to hunters and butchers. Those who refused to do so were killed, but the king himself was killed in 842 AD, and he was killed by a Buddhist monk who was prohibited by the Buddhist faith to kill at all. Lev Gumilov states, "The principal question is, why did the militant people accept the sermon of non-resistance to evil, mercy and autocracy as the dominant ideology? How, in its turn, did they proceed to make wars and conquests, and ultimately, how did Buddhist teaching transformed to get out of that contradictory state?" Consequently, the Buddhist doctrine in Tibet was transformed from the doctrine of salvation by asceticism and not resistance to evil to the doctrine of militant church with Chachmapala, who were the defenders of the faith. The Buddhists defended this faith by various means. When Buddhist believer Tisroden Tsan became the king of Tibet, de facto power was in the hands of a nobleman named Mahan. He abolished 2 Buddhist monasteries and banned the distribution of Buddhist literature. In response, the Buddhists staged a revolt and, with the support of the king, buried Mathan alive in the ground, because, as they say, Buddhism forbids believers to kill. According to Lev Gumilov, they faked a story to tell the people Mahan heard the God's voice that made him to enter the tomb for the joy of the king and the nation. When he entered, the doors closed themselves and he remained under the ground. After the assassination of the Tibetan king Longdam by the Buddhist monk in the 9th century AD, Tibet was split into several small principalities. It was the beginning of the long period of Mongol and Manchu dynasties of China domination in Tibet. At that time, the unification role was played by the Buddhist order Gelugpa, whose monks had rebuilt Potala, the palace of the Tibetan kings. The leader of this order, Sonam Gyatso, received the title of Tela, Dalai, from the Mongol ruler Altin Khan, which means the ocean of wisdom. Therefore, instead of the royal power in Tibet, a political regime, spiritual and secular power of the Dalai Lamas was introduced. In fact, it is an analogue of the Pope in the Catholic Church. The first 3 Dalai Lamas were chosen on a random basis, and later there was a special election procedure developed. The Dalai Lama is elected with the help of monks, local authorities, the Communist Party, and high-ranking monks. They use certain rituals to look for candidates who could become the next Dalai Lama. Once the monks have decided, they report to the local government on the candidacy of the new Dalai Lama. After that, it is necessary for the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party to confirm the status of the future Dalai Lama. Certain rituals should be followed to identify candidates, and these candidates must be then reviewed by the local government. The procedure for recruiting candidates for the future Dalai Lama is both sacred and democratic. After meditating and walking around the sacred lake, the elder monks choose a few little boys aged 4-7 years for the second round. For instance, they place several items on the table, among which are items belonging to the deceased Dalai Lama: rosaries, books, etc. If a boy, and this is a man's business, chooses the belonging of the deceased, it is believed that he has a sacred connection with the previous Dalai Lama. They talk to the winners and perform other rites. The tulkus, living Buddhas, are elected in the similar way. They choose the abbots of the monasteries among the winning kids. To look for the future tulkus, when needed, monks are using certain rituals. It is to be determined whether the chosen child is really a living incarnation of the Buddha, and then the monks address to the local tulku to confirm his status. Our interviewee, Tulku Tudengjaba, was chosen to play this notable role for his clan and village, being a 4-year child. They were preparing him for this mission for a long time, since they took him, with the consent of his parents and local authorities, to the monastery. He then studied at the medical faculty of the Tibetan University in Lhasa. After the graduation, he became the abbot of the monastery, and now he combined this work with work in the monastery hospital, lecturing at the university. And he considers the main task of him as: I should carry my duties at the temple, be a good man, and take care of the people in our temple hospital. According to official Chinese statistics, in modern Tibet, there are about 1,700 living incarnations of Buddha. They are all selected according to the procedures similar to Dalai Lama's procedures, but none of them will ever be able to claim for the position of Dalai Lama. He will be chosen and approved following the ancient burial traditions as a boy who is not burdened by age, social experience, and church positions. In any case, since the 14th century, the Dalai Lama and the living Buddhas have been considered legitimate if approved by the Chinese government. In addition, there is a collective management system for all Buddhist temples.
Окрім того, існує й колективна система управління буддійськими храмами.
Basically, there is a collective management system of all Buddhist temples, and there are communities responsible for managing each particular temple. In fact, Lamaism, the hierarchical church system, built similar to the state hierarchy established in the empire of Bogda Khan, Genghis Khan. This type of Buddhism consists of two parts. The external cult practice of Lamaism is focused on the accumulation of merit, similar to Hinayana. The internal spiritual is dedicated to merging of the human mind with the cosmic body of the Buddha. The teachings of the Lama that the living God has 4 specific initiations concerning the vessel, the mystery, the wisdom, and the great union. This is the union that Tulku Tudeng Jaba is looking for.
Саме такого єднання і прагне живий Будда Tudeng Jaba.
I wish our two countries and people to have more communication, idea sharing, and culture exchange platforms. Additionally, I wish people from Ukraine and other parts of the world to explore more of Tibet. We should agree with Tulku that other countries are to be appreciated and learned from. Each nation is a unique God's creature that brings its own contribution to the world civilization. And sacred and intellectual part of Tibet is a part of the world's treasury that is really bright and meaningful. Tibet is a sacred territory not only of China, but of the whole world. Our stereotypes say that Tibet is of just mountains, but Tibet is also of lakes, sacred lakes. We are located on the lake called the Three Stones, a sacred site from where one of the Tibetan Buddhism teachings originated. This temple is not only a symbol of the birth of one of the most common schools of Tibetan Buddhism, it is also popular since it seems to provide help to families who do not have children. At least many families who would like to have a child make up the reasonable share of visitors of Sacred Lake Three Stones, where it is prohibited to swim, and the temple in the midst of it.
Розташованого в самому центрі озера.
The water in this temple is considered to be sacred because the temple is located in the center of the lake. It is believed that this is the birthplace of the school of Tibetan Buddhism called Nyangba. The temple gives sanctity to the lake. Locals say that a mountain gives birth to a mountain and a lake gives birth to a lake. Tibetans still believe that the world is full of evil spirits, and evil Buddhists believe that some of these evil spirits are stronger than Buddha. According to the locals, it is only sorcerers from the black religion of Bon who can save them from evil spirits. By the way, black colors clearly prevail in the Tibetan national clothing. Black depicts the god of hell Yama. Bodhisattvas who have to fight the god of hell and evil spirits are also depicted in black. Both camps are depicted in Buddhist images as people with heads of yaks, bulls. For instance, the Bodhisattva Yamantaka, who defeated the god of hell Yama and drove him into the dungeons, is depicted with 9 heads, 34 arms, and 96 legs. The main head of Yamantaki is the head of Yak, a hairy Tibetan bull from the highlands. The ancient Tibetan Bon religion used to be popular among militant Tibetans who were appreciating the god of sun Mitra. The cult of the sun god Mitras was also popular in ancient times in the Ukrainian Crimea and the Ukrainian Kuban. In the kingdom of Pontus, ruled by King Mithridates VI Eupator, the cult of the god Mitras was very popular among the military, and there is still the Mithridates sacred mountain in the ancient Ukrainian city of Pantikapaum, Kerch. Preparing for the shooting in Tibet, I had my own hypothesis about what Ukraine has to do with Tibet. This connection, to some extent, is primarily through the personality of the great prophet Buddha. The great Scythian Buddha comes from Sakyamuni family, and Scythian Sakkas family comes from the Ukrainian Dnipro region. At the same time, we were looking for Ukraine here in Tibet, but in fact, we found China here in Tibet. And this is an extremely interesting issue, studying how the Scythian religion of Buddhism mixed with local religions, including the Tibetan Bon religion.
Вірування тибетського народу Бонт, і з того вийшов тибетський буддизм.